Napoli fans around the world, welcome to Napoli Talk. Antonio Conte is the new Napoli manager after months, actually years, of trying to make this work. Finally, we have him. We have a serial Serie A winner guiding this club. It is exactly what this club needs after a disastrous season where we had absolutely no leadership, no guidance, no tactical spark. Finally, we have a guy who knows what it means to win in Italy, and he will bring structure, order, rules to this group of players, but also to the entire ecosystem. He will make sure that De Laurentiis delivers on whatever promise he must have given Conte. And I believe to attract Conte, he must have promised something quite good for us. We will see over the summer. This video has two parts. Part one, we will ask Uncle Sharma, an Inter content creator, you guys know him, to tell us a little bit more about Conte. Why? Because he lived Conte for 2 years. He won with Conte the Scudetto just a few years ago. And interestingly, they had Spalletti right before Conte. So who better than Uncle Sharma, who was analyzing all those games, to tell us a little bit more about Conte, but also what he brings compared to Spalletti. And part two of the video will be what I think a team with Conte needs to have. What elements, not necessarily names of specific players, but what does the defender need to do? What does the striker need to do? If you want to hear me talk about that, then stick around until the end. But first, Uncle Sharma.
Yo, Dom, thank you for inviting me on the channel, and I hope to shed some light on your new incoming coach, Il Comandante, Antonio Conte. Let's go. So, first of all, why was he able to win the Scudetto with Inter when Spalletti couldn't? Well, first of all, I would say Spalletti wasn't expected to win the Scudetto. Let's be honest. We didn't have the team to do that. In 2016, when you guys, Napoli, were at least putting up some title challenges to Juve, we were deep, real deep into our banter era. Spalletti brought us back into the top four, and that's exactly what we wanted him to do. 2 seasons in a row, top four. But there was always that feeling that Spalletti reached his ceiling. There was not much more that he could do with that team, which until that time was probably true. Up until that time, all he had won was a Russian league with Zenit. So we needed someone to take us to that next level, to break that ceiling. And that's what Antonio Conte always does. And that's why he was hired. I mean, let's just look back at his career even before that. Juve, when he came in, they finished seventh. He came in, they won the Scudetto against Ibra, Thiago Silva's AC Milan. Starts a new winning cycle for them. Italy, as suffering Italy fans, we know Italy were underwhelming since 2012. He comes in and he takes them to a quarterfinal in Euro 2016 with, let's be honest, the worst Italy team in history for sure. And then at Chelsea, they finished 10th under Mourinho. He comes in, wins the title. He comes in the Premier League. It's like, that's just what he does. And then Inter, as I said, fourth back-to-back, comes in. First year, he doesn't win. He gets us to second, 1 point off Juve, and then to the Europa League final, which should have won, by the way. But then lands us our first Scudetto since 2010. So this is what Antonio Conte does. And why is he able to do that? Why did he win the Scudetto for us when others weren't able to do it? I think the one main reason is the obsession. This man is absolutely obsessed with winning, especially when it comes to the league. He treats the 38 games like 38 finals. Every single game, nothing is left to chance. Everything is prepared. Every detail, every stone is not left unturned. And it's not just about Conte. It's a team of professionals around and the team that he brings with him. You know, his right hand man, Stellini, who's always with him. At Inter, he even managed to bring in Antonio Pintus as the fitness coach. Widely regarded as the best in the game. Inter's players were in the physical forms of their lives. And all Conte players talk about that, past or present. Diet, nutrition. Inter, Lukaku was given a guy that was looking after his diet to get him back into that peak physical Lukaku shape, which won him the MVP in the Scudetto season as well. We have to be honest as well. at Inter, he was also heavily backed. We gave him pretty much everything that he asked for. Conte himself, in terms of his wages, 10, 11, 12 million net at the time. So he's taking a bit of a pay cut at Napoli, so fair play. But Lukaku, Hakimi, Barella, expensive veterans in like Godin and Vidal. A lot of people joke that Inter kind of bought that Scudetto on loan, the Covidetto, as some people call it. In some sense, that is true because we really put everything into the Conte basket, hoping that he delivers the result, which he usually ends up doing. We did create a stacked team. That also goes back to that winning obsession in Conte's mind. That was his obsession, that to take down a 9-year long domination by Juventus. That's what he needed to build in that team. He needed to build a stacked team. In the end, we actually ended up competing with Pioli's first full season of Milan. But at the same time, he also got eliminated out of group stages as well, so that helps. When Conte has 6-7 days to prepare 4 games, a whole week to prepare, the players have time for recovery as well. He's Thanos. He's literally like Thanos. He's one of the best coaches around when he has time to prepare. And once we got out of the UCL, that was it for Serie A. We ran away with it. And he's also, those high standards, not only just for the players, they're also for the directors and management, which is why it's going to be really interesting how things work out in Napoli, because he isn't afraid to speak out publicly, even against his own club, even against his own directors, which does cause a bit of drama, but it also keeps everyone on their toes. It, raises those standards, and it makes everyone work a little bit harder, I think. What's his man management like? Well, I would say in this regard, Conte is a bit of a throwback. He's a bit of an old school coach in that sense. He uses the carrot and stick method, mainly the stick method, let's be honest. His fallouts at Chelsea with Willian and Diego Costa are quite famous. I don't remember any particular issues at Inter, because the thing is, you have to buy in to the Conte way. You have to go all in. You know that you're going to be made to run miles and miles until you puke. You know you're going to have to suffer through long, tactical, defensive-minded coaching sessions. And when he decides on a core starting 11, he's not going to rotate much. So, you might have, 13, 14, 15 players max that he relies on, especially if you're not in Europe. So you're not going to see much rotation. So you just have to buy into that. You have to understand that this is what it's going to be like in that year. And, I think at Inter, at Juve, especially, players really bought into that. He's very cutthroat and no nonsense in that way. And also, if you're a player that Conte didn't specifically ask for, or he's not a Conte type of player, he's just not going to play you. Very simply put. Ask Christian Eriksen all about that. He knows. Is he tactically flexible? Well, I think if you ask Conte, he would probably say yes. But there's a famous back and forth between him and legendary coach Fabio Capello on Sky Sport Italia when Inter went out at the UCL group stage for the second year in a row. And Capello just asked him, do you not have a plan B? You just always play this 3-5-2. And Conte quite sarcastically replied to him, yes, we have one, but I don't want to say it live on TV. Essentially, at Inter, we always played a 3-5-2, which is why there's a lot of those comments being made that Conte doesn't have a plan B. Apart from time to time when we had to chase a game, he would bring on Alexis Sanchez to play a 3-4-1-2. In his second year, he tried to play a bit of a higher line. I don't really know what happened to him in the second year. The ghost of Marcelo Bielsa and Gasperini, came inside of him one night. He tried to play a higher defensive line, higher pressing, and he was trying to integrate Christian Eriksen half-heartedly, and it just didn't work. We almost kind of wasted the first half of that season. But once we went out of the Champions League, we stopped conceding so many goals. Inter looked much better because he brought back the defensive line a little bit more. Real proper Conte ball, you could say. Less possession, more transitions, playing to the strengths of the likes of Lukaku and Hakimi a bit more. And voila, we ran away with the Scudetto. And then I remember at Chelsea at the beginning, he tried to play a 4-3-3 formation. But near the beginning of the season, they got smashed by Arsenal. I believe it was 3-0. And after that, he went to a 3-4-3 and he never looked back. So there is, at Napoli, I can imagine there might be an initial period where you might see him experiment with some different formation until he finds the ideal one. And then he will stick to that until death, probably. I personally imagine, looking at your squad right now, it will be 3-4-2-1 in my personal opinion. Is his football less adapt to cup competitions? If you're talking about, European Cups for sure. His track record definitely says that. There's no two ways around it. I always found it a bit reductive when people said that three at the back formation don't work in Europe. Just talking about just numbers on a pitch. I always disagreed with that, especially now you see a lot more teams play with three at the back. I think it has something to do with what we talked about before, those training regimes, as demands of players every 3-4 days. I think the players struggle with that, with this style of football. And Conte himself not having enough time to prep for teams tactically as well. I think that has something to do with it as well. I think subconsciously in every single job that Conte has had, I think he's always been, maybe he doesn't mean to, but he's always been a bit more focused on the league objectives as well. As I said, he always has that obsession with the league. It always feels like the league is always the number one focus for him. In a sense, he's right when you think about it. A lot of the previous jobs, when you look at it, yes, getting past the UCL group stage is always nice for reputation and more money. But at the end of the day, objectively, if you want to have something at the end of the season, a league trophy is objectively better than just progressing past the group stage for the sake of it. And according to his right-hand man, Stellini, who recently released an interview before the Napoli job was confirmed, he was talking about that Conte over the last year and a half, where he's been without a job, that he's been kind of, doing some studying, trying to upgrade his, arsenal of knowledge, tactical knowledge. So maybe, he can bring some new ideas now into this Napoli job. Because we've seen, after Conte left, Inzaghi came in with a slightly more progressive style of football, more European, as you can say, and Inter have been a lot better in European football compared to with Conte when we went out to the group stages both times. But I guess, that's not really a focus for Napoli right now. So I think he's the perfect coach to just focus on the league positions. Why did he leave Inter? Well, I think I don't really need to tell you guys about this. I think he's famous for this. He is a bit of a drama queen. You as a content creator, Dom, you are going to have so much fun this year, off stress, covering his press conferences at Napoli in general. It's going to be very entertaining. So at Inter, already in the summer of 2020, after the first season, there was already rumors that he wasn't happy, that he already could see, even though we spent a lot of money already with Lukaku, Hakimi was already kind of confirmed, Eriksen, Barella, but he had to be convinced to stay on that summer after the first year because he wanted more. And then he ended up being convinced, and then we had to kind of get in some few lower cost transfers, still expensive, like as I said, the likes of Vidal, high cost in terms of wages, Kolarov, just to convince him to stay. Some of his trusted soldiers, experienced players. And then after COVID hit, Suning's financial issues, I think very famous, everyone knows, Inter were going to have to sell some big players in the summer to survive. And he saw that as an undoing of his work that he put in, or his staff, that him and his staff put in, and that he would have to kind of start from scratch again, that, again, those high demands, that he wanted to just build onto that, which is fair enough. But at the same time, I always saw that as kind of abandoning the ship. And I think I was kind of proven right after, what we've seen, how it's worked out for Conte afterwards. And he left literally, we couldn't even celebrate the title properly. He left like 2 or 3 days after we lifted the trophy, and he had left. So he managed to mutually rescind the contract, get a nice payout. And as we saw, as I said, afterwards, we saw with Inzaghi, the team was weaker. But I think he probably regrets that decision, because afterwards, the job he did at Spurs, first year he did well getting to fourth, but what he did afterwards has done a lot of damage to his reputation, because no other top teams have really been in touch with Conte. He's been out of a job for a while now. So I think this Napoli job could be one of his last chances of redemption. Not for a job in Italy. I think there's always going to be a job in Italy for him. But if he wants to manage the top clubs around Europe, for sure, I think this is one of his last chances. And always when he leaves, there's always a cloud when he leaves. First at Juve, even though he's a Juve legend, the way he left there just because they didn't buy him. I think it was Manuel Iturbe at the time. He left because of that. At Chelsea, similar issues. Inter, similar issues. And Spurs, what a legendary rant he had before he left there. So there's always a cloud when Conte leaves. Do I think that he can save Napoli? Yes. Antonio Conte with no Europe, 1 game a week. As I said, I think he is one of the best managers in the world when it comes to that. And on top of that, He's a southern Italian man. He's from Lecce, the south of Italy, managing a southern Italian team with his aura, with his personality, with his charisma. I'm saying that Napoli, with this signing, you've already secured yourself a top four finish for next season. This man will create a siege mentality. He's going to use that thing about being, the southern Italian, create this kind of us versus them mentality. He will take those players through hell this summer. That's one thing you can guarantee. But he will turn them into his soldiers and ready to battle Serie A next year. He might even demand some expensive upgrades, not only just in terms of playing staff, but backroom staff. He will demand, the top people from around the world in the backroom staff, but also training facilities. I know Napoli are a bit of a meme sometimes when it comes to those, wheelie bin ice baths and things like that. He will demand top facilities for the players with their recoveries as well. He doesn't leave a stone unturned, as I said. So those kind of things might seem a bit of a pain in the butt, but they also might benefit you in the long term. And most of all, if De Laurentiis somehow does not manage to clash with him, try to back him as much as he can with playing stuff and those other kind of off-field demands too. I think it's almost a guarantee that this Napoli team will once again become a feared opponent for Serie A at least. But I honestly struggle to see this marriage lasting longer than a year. Two fiery Southern Italian characters. This is an accident waiting to happen, but it's going to be a fun ride. I can guarantee you that. Whether it's for you guys or for me as an outsider, it's going to be a fun ride. And I think it's going to be a good ride. I think it's going to take you back to the top. And, if he's back correctly, even as a Scudetto challenger. That was my 2 cents on Antonio Conte to Napoli. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Have fun.
Super insightful analysis. Guys, make sure to check him out in his YouTube channel. And as I promised, part 2 now, I'll be focusing on what exactly Conte wants from his players in every or most position. So let's start off with, I think, the most crucial one of all. It's the central defender when he plays with 3 at the back. And let's assume that Napoli will play 3 at the back. When he was at Juve, that was Bonucci. When he was at Chelsea, that was David Luiz. You see, whatever defender he had there centrally was someone that was always very good at playing the ball with his feet. Now, does Napoli have that kind of player? To some extent, yes. I think Ostigard has a discrete level of passing accuracy, let's call it like that, distribution. He likes to take the risk of playing the ball forward in between lines, over the top. Could Ostigard be a central pillar for Antonio Conte? Then the defenders next to that central pillar need to be players that are very, very good in one-on-one defending. I'm thinking Barzagli, Chiellini, aggressive, almost dirty players. Azpilicueta for Chelsea, Tim Cahill. These are guys that are going to grab every ball that comes in from crosses. They are incredibly aware of their surroundings. They're incredibly good in knowing what spaces they need to occupy. Just incredibly solid defenders. With Inter, it was Skriniar. Just these guys that make the striker's life incredibly difficult. I mean, Osimhen knows all about how tight Skriniar can get onto you, and in fact, that's the reason why Osimhen has a mask. But that's the level of defender that we are talking about. I don't see this type of defender in the Napoli squad. I don't think Rachmani has those qualities. But listen, maybe Conte can find a way to tune these guys that we have to his likings, or more likely, we need a few acquisitions at the back. Now let's go to the midfield. I think we're going to play with 4 midfielders, with the 2 wide players being wing backs. So you could say it's 5 at the back. You guys get what I mean. These wing backs have a very particular style of play. If you take a look at Perisic, Hakimi, Victor Moses, all these guys that were playing under Conte, they were great at getting forward and beating their man. This is where I think that maybe someone like Di Lorenzo, someone like Oliveira, definitely Mario Rui, is not quite up for it, or it doesn't quite have the necessary qualities for it, because I've never seen them actually beating a man with their skills. That's going to hold Napoli back. We really do need a skillful player that can also come back and defend. Someone that is able to cross the ball very well, and we'll get to why. So again, this is an area that Napoli need to really, really consider. I do think that maybe Oliveira could do a job, but I think we need at least one new player on either side to really match the characteristics that Conte wants. Then if we move centrally towards the midfield, Conte always wants someone that lies deep in the middle, that is able to control the play. That's Lobotka. Perfect. Done. Delivered. And then the other players need to be players that are able to carry the ball. I'm thinking Barella. They're able to really charge forward, help those transitions, but they also have to be very feisty midfielders, getting stuck in. You really need the best version of Anguissa. Is Conte going to be able to extract that from Anguissa? I really, really hope so. And then finally, we get to the attacking side of things. We will see what he does. I have a feeling that he will play with 3 strikers, with Kvara and Ngonge cutting inside, allowing the fullbacks to go deep into the channels. And then the striker has got to be someone that wins balls inside the box, that is able to get at the end of the crosses from the fullbacks, and is able to play back to goal, so that when Kvara and Ngonge or Politano cut inside, they can triangulate with the striker. And this striker has to be comfortable leading the line by himself, playing back to goal, and really making sure that he holds up the ball for the entire team to come forward. That is not really the strength of Osimhen. So I cannot see Osimhen staying here. There's a lot of talks about Lukaku. Maybe it's better to try something different. Gyökeres from Sporting apparently liked the post on the 433 Instagram channels linking Antonio Conte to Napoli. Could he be the new striker for Napoli? As we head closer to the season, we will be updating this side of things. Guys, I hope you liked the video. I hope you're happy that Antonio Conte is here. Let me know what you think below. Maybe let me know what players Napoli should go and buy. And as always, Forza Napoli sempre. Ciao.